I want to share our first workshop, which is sponsored by Intuition Robotics, will occur right now. You can find brief bios on each participant in your program book, so please look them up. I'd like to call up our moderator and our panelists to talk about the best financial and legal practices for caregivers to protect their loved ones. Our moderator is Denise Latow, so Denise, come on up here. We have Heidi Friedman, who's a board-certified elder law attorney with Friedman Elder Law. We have Stephanie Schneider, who's a board-certified elder law attorney with Stephanie Schneider, PA. Deborah Golden, who is our regional program supervisor of Adult Protective Services. Adriana Gonzalez, who's the MAC Medicaid waiver supervisor for the Area Agency on Aging of Broward County. And I did forget to mention that our moderator, Denise Latow, is also an expert in elder care as well. So here you go, Denise.
Thank you, Charlotte. It is truly an honor for me to be standing here today at the third annual Empowering Caregivers Symposium. I'm grateful to see so many caregivers, professionals, and community partners and family members joining us here today. Your presence speaks to the shared commitment that we all have, ensuring that our loved ones receive the support, dignity, and protection that they deserve. So today's legal panel will focus on some of those most pressing issues facing older adults and those who care for them. Accessing veterans' benefits, navigating long-term care needs, and preventing and responding to elder exploitation. These topics are not only timely, they are essential. As our population ages, caregivers are increasingly asked to manage complex financial, legal, and medical landscapes. Our goal this morning is to provide clarity, resources, and practical guidance you can use immediately, whether you are supporting a parent, a spouse, a client, or a member of your community. I'm privileged to be moderating, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I guess I don't have to introduce myself again, but my name is Denise Latow. I'm an estate planning attorney in Coral Springs, and we'll start with Stephanie Schneider, who's the furthest from me. Stephanie, please introduce yourself and your practice.
Good morning. Nice to see everybody here today. As Denise had said, I am a board-certified elder law attorney. That doesn't mean I'm old, although my 17-year-old would say that. It means that our goal is to guide people through aging challenges at any point in their life.
Thank you. Adriana?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adriana Gonzalez. I've been with the Area Agency on Aging in Broward County for 19 years, currently supervising the Medicaid department.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Golden. I'm the Regional Program Supervisor for Adult Protective Services for Department of Children and Families. And we do investigation into abuse, neglect, exploitation on vulnerable adults age 18 and over.
Good morning. I am Heidi Friedman. I am a board-certified elder law attorney also, although I am old, so I'm just saying that. But I am also a VA-accredited attorney with what's called VBMS Access.
Okay, so what we like to do generally is to start out with a case study. It's much easier to understand a lot of the concepts that they will be discussing when you have an actual example. So I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud, but some of you may benefit more by reading it on the screen. We have here a 75-year-old married woman who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 7 years ago. She lives at a home with her spouse. Although she sees a neurologist and takes medication, the disease is progressing. Recently, she has fallen several times. Her husband, aged 80, is her primary caregiver. The husband has his own health issues. Their children live out of state. Her husband wants to do everything possible to care for his wife at home. They are beginning to understand that Medicare will not pay for many of the services she needs to remain safe, i.e. home health services. This came as a shock to them because they always believed or thought that Medicare covered everything when they turned age 65. The couple went on the internet to obtain information about a program they heard called Medicaid. They were overwhelmed by the amount of information they saw, and some of the information conflicted. They wondered what to believe. They were worried about losing their home if they applied for Medicaid for the wife. Many friends and neighbors told them this would happen. They were also concerned about having enough money to care for the husband as he aged. Their assets include a home in Florida, 2 cars. Each spouse has an IRA, so individual retirement account. Each spouse receives Social Security retirement income. The wife also has a pension. They have funeral arrangements, and they have life insurance policies. So the couple has no estate plan and no legal documents in the event either one of them becomes incapacitated. So, Adriana, we're actually going to start with you this morning. Please tell us, is there Medicaid programs that can help pay for care in the home or in an assisted living facility rather than a nursing home? That would be question number 1. And question number 2 is, what are the financial requirements?
Yes, Denise. Unfortunately, seniors don't realize that Medicare doesn't cover long-term care services at home until they need them. And when they find out that Medicare will cover some long-term care services, they often believe that they won't qualify for Medicaid because they have too much income or too many assets. However, Medicaid is just an umbrella name. Under this Medicaid umbrella, we have several different Medicaid programs. They're all target different populations. They all have their own financial guidelines and provide their own services. For example, there is a Medicaid program to cover medical bills for low-income families. There is a Medicaid program for pregnant women. There's Medicaid programs that help pay for the nursing home fees. And also, there's a few Medicaid home community programs that help and they are available to help seniors over 65 or disabled adults in the state of Florida to cover for in-home services or assisted living facility fees. So yes, we have Medicaid programs that will cover services in the community settings.
Okay, and the financial requirements?
For a single individual applying for Medicaid, the income limit is $2,801, $2,801, and for a couple, it's $5,802. The assets limit is $2,000 for an individual and $3,000 for a couple.
Okay, can you briefly go over the process, the application process?
Yes, sure. Individuals interested in the program should contact always the Area Agency on Aging. That's the start point. We start the eligibility process by completing an intake where we make sure the person applying for Medicaid long-term care meets the minimal requirements. We go over citizenship status, resident status, age, disability determination, and we complete a small intake and coordinate a telephone assessment. The telephone assessment is completed within the next few weeks, and after the assessment is completed, we will recommend the funded programs available in each particular situation could be different, and we also place the clients on the pre-enrollment list for the Medicaid long-term care at the end of the assessment.
Okay, and I want you to reiterate where they make that application.
They need to contact the helpline at the Area Agency on Aging, and the phone number is 954-745-9779.
Thank you. Stephanie, can someone in their financial situation actually qualify for Medicaid, and why or how?
So the simple answer is yes. This couple can help qualify the wife for Medicaid. As you heard Adriana say, there are some income limits for the wife. There are asset limits for both the wife and the husband. But the nice thing about living here in Florida is we have wonderful laws that protect our homestead. Not just from creditors, but our homestead, even though we know it has value, that value doesn't count or prevent the wife from qualifying for Medicaid. How many of you might have come here today because you heard something? I'm going to say it's a rumor. Hopefully Heidi will agree with me. Have you heard somebody say, neighbor, somebody at work, you're going to lose your home if you apply for Medicaid? Can I see a show of hands? Okay. Here in Florida, that is misinformation. And so one of the things you're going to hear us talk about this morning is the importance of getting correct information. And that means not relying on AI, not going on the internet, and not listening to the neighbor. Okay, thank you for the laugh. But it's true. When you don't get correct, qualified legal advice, you're going to make wrong decisions. And those wrong decisions can be hurtful, harmful, not helpful. So it's very important, as Adriana said, call and do the telephone assessment first. Get educated, get information. Go consult with a qualified elder law attorney. Find out what your legal rights are to preserve as many assets as possible for both spouses as they age.
Thank you. Adriana, approximately how long can a person expect to be on a wait list or for this entire process?
It's really hard to say. Every case is completely different, and the wait list for the Medicaid long-term care program is not based on the first come, first served criteria. It's based on priority score. So when we complete the assessment to determine the eligibility for Medicaid for the waiting list, the system, an identical assessment is given to everybody that applies for Medicaid. The assessment is completed and the system will generate a priority score from 1 to 8. People that score 1 or 2 are considered very low and they're not even eligible to be on the waiting list. A score 3 to 4 is medium risk and will be on the waiting list for Medicaid, and we also advise to get on the waiting list for other funded programs available in the county. Score 5 to 8 is considered high priority, and these are the individuals that will be selected from the waiting list first as soon as the funding becomes available. So every case is different. You can be on the waiting list for a few weeks, for a few months, for a few years.
So what should the husband do if his wife's condition significantly declines?
Very good. Yeah, very good question. After we finish the assessment, we will reassess within 13 months. Once a year, if you're not selected from the waiting list, we will complete a second assessment to update the record. But what happens if the situation changes before the year? We always advise to call. We will review the situation, and if there is a significant change in the health condition, in the living situation, in the caregiver relationship, we will document the changes with a new assessment.
Okay. Stephanie, what would you recommend for this company to do in terms of planning ahead before actually obtaining Medicaid assistance?
It's also another great question, Denise. So some of the things you're going to hear all of us talk about today are not meant to be done individually. You can take certain steps simultaneously. So you can call ADRC, schedule your telephone interview, have the telephone assessment done. At the same time, you can go and consult with an elder law attorney. This couple, you heard Denise say, did not have any legal documents in place, which means they don't have a plan to fall back on should either become physically incapacitated, cognitively incapacitated, or both. So that's also a good place to start while you call and you schedule your telephone interview. We want you to have certain legal documents in place, both as the caregiver and perhaps the person that you're caring for, depending on their level of comprehension. For example, we want you to have a durable power of attorney, which is a way of giving legal permission to make financial decisions. Just being married doesn't mean that the husband can call up the wife's pension company and say, I need $5,000 to pay for a private duty home health aide. They're going to say to him, we can't talk to you unless you show us her power of attorney or you show us that you're her legal guardian. So that's a very important document to have so your hands are not tied. It's also important, even when married, to have what's called a designation of healthcare surrogate. That's a document that allows you to make the healthcare decisions, to talk with the doctors, to call in a second opinion. If he feels that his wife is not getting the correct care, he might want to transfer her to a different hospital or a different doctor. So, two very important documents to have as part of the process.
Thank you. We are going to reserve some time for question and answer after we go through the scenarios. I know it's probably more present now, but we'd like to wait until after we go through the scenarios. I'm sure there will be something there for each of you to have a question about. The next case has to do with exploitation. Here we have an 80-year-old single divorced man living alone in his home. His daughter is deceased. Son lives on the west coast of Florida. Since his daughter's death and his divorce, he has a tendency to drink alcohol for his emotional pain. He is hospitalized. His brother arranges for home health care services through a registry, not an agency, when he returns home. During the assessment by the registry, it is documented that he has cognitive impairment. After a few months of home health services, the aide terminates her employment and convinces the man that she should move in with him. The aide rents a room in the man's home to a member of her church and pockets the money. She also convinces the older adult to give her money, large amounts of money, gets up into the hundreds of thousands, and she travels to other countries using his money. When his son and daughter-in-law learn about this, they install hidden cameras in the man's home. They witness the aide verbally abusing him and putting pressure on him to give her money. They contact the 1-800-ABUSE hotline and file a report. The aide takes the man to an attorney who prepares a durable power of attorney, naming the aide as his financial decision maker and a last will and testament that leaves everything to her. The aide brings the man to a real estate attorney who prepares a deed transferring ownership of the man's home, now worth over $900,000, to the aide. The aide does not pay anything for the transfer. While all of this is taking place, the man's neighbors, a married couple, are noticing the aide's threatening behavior and how she is limiting his contact with them and the rest of the neighbors. The husband is an attorney. The wife talks to the older man when the aide is not in the house and learns more about what is actually happening there. She explains to him that what the aide has done is not right. The older man agrees to be represented by his neighbor's husband, who files a petition for injunction to protect a vulnerable adult. During an emergency court hearing, the judge grants the petition and signs an order. This prevents the aide from going back into the house, restrains the aide from having contact with the older gentleman, and freezes all of the bank accounts. Broward County Property Appraiser's Office and Broward Sheriff's Office conduct an investigation. So I'm going to start actually with you, Debbie, and this is actually, unfortunately, a case that Debbie had. Names have been changed to protect everyone here. I don't even think I gave a name, actually. Did I? Okay. If someone suspects abuse, neglect, or exploitation, what should they do and how quickly should they do it?
Okay, so Florida Statute 415 says everybody in the state of Florida is considered a mandatory reporter. If you're calling and you have a certain position, you do need to use your name, but you can call anonymously. You would call the 1-800-96-ABUSE number, but you could also report online. If you look up abuse in Florida, it's the same hotline as the child side. We're just option number 2. And what happens is, when you call it in, they say call it in as soon as possible. So it could be right away within 10 minutes. It could be the next day. We've had people who had to wait a few weeks to get caregivers out of the home. And we cover abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And in certain situations, it actually starts out more as neglect, and then we find out about the exploitation going forward and, asking our questions. So at DCF, our process is to go out within 24 hours of receiving that report. And then we do make notifications to law enforcement if we have findings, to the state attorney. But just so you know, if APS ever comes out when we bring law enforcement, it's really for that investigator's safety, because we don't know if someone violent is in the home or not. And the only thing we could bring with us is pen and paper. We can't protect ourselves from people that are violent. So the police, I'll say the majority of the time, don't find anything criminal, even though we might find exploitation. And then we have to refer them for civil remedies.
Okay. Stephanie, while a complaint has been made to the abuse hotline and an APS, Adult Protective Services, investigation is being conducted, what else can a victim or their family do to protect the person?
So Florida has a law. It became law about a year before COVID hit in 2020. And it is specifically meant to protect, you heard Debbie say, vulnerable adults, anybody over age 18 on up. So it could be a younger person with a developmental disability, or it could be a gentleman like the 80-year-old victim of this perpetrator here. The attorney, who's the neighbor, went into court on an emergency basis, filed paperwork to tell the judge what they saw, what they heard happening. The gentleman came with him and testified in front of the judge. And so this is a great legal tool, because the judge signed an order preventing this perpetrator from going back in the house, from having any contact with the man, and freezing the bank accounts, meaning even though she had the gentleman put her name on the accounts, she couldn't walk into the bank and have any access. That order also protected the home, so she couldn't sell it in the meantime. So these are really great legal tools to use at the same time that you're making the complaint to the 1-800-ABUSE hotline number. Now, he was lucky in the sense that he still had a lot of cognitive faculties. But if the victim does not, let's say the victim has an advanced stage of dementia or Alzheimer's, then what we may also want to do is get an emergency guardian appointed, because that allows that guardian to make immediate healthcare decisions for the person, get them the medical attention that they need. If they need to temporarily be removed from the home while we're trying to get the perpetrator out, the guardian can do that as well. So those are some of the legal tools that are available for us to make sure that we are protecting that vulnerable adult.
Thank you. I'm going to ask everyone to check their cell phones and see if they are silenced. No, just because all of us up here are relatively soft-spoken. So, for those who there's information being provided that they really want to hear, please silence your cell phone. Okay, Debbie, what are some of the warning signs? Because our experience is that people wait too late.
Right. So some of the beginning warning signs for, like I said, a lot of times abuse, neglect, exploitation will go in certain patterns. And the first thing we notice is sometimes a bill forgets to get paid. And then we'll get a report the person doesn't have electric, and we find out why is because all the money was depleted from the account. So just so you know, for the statute, exploitation for us, when a person has capacity, there has to be some kind of deception or intimidation. If the person lacks capacity to consent, they just have to know that person has some kind of a memory limitation. So what happens is you might see the intimidation in the home. So threatening someone that if they don't listen to you, they're going to go to a nursing home, we're going to consider that like intimidation. That's like one of the biggest thing we see out there, because sometimes families move in together and they're intimidating them to get what they want. We see them confine them to a house. If they have dementia, they lock them in a room all day. They lock them in a house with no way to get out in case of a fire. We actually see when they isolate them from other friends and family, we'll get calls and they say, they won't let me talk to my dad, or they won't let me. So those are signs. But when it comes to the abuse and the neglect, you might see lack of food in the house, lack of utilities, unknown bruises. A lot of times if people are physically abused, they will say that they fell, even though a fall sometimes has distinction in the way the bruises are, where they'll get a knot on their forehead and then bleed down under. Whereas if someone's punched in the eye, it's usually a full round circle. So even though we're not experts on where every bruise came from, sometimes we see caregivers, there'll be finger marks trying to get someone up, where they'll squeeze or pinch someone if they're not listening. So those are some of the basic signs we see. And you could always tell that, unfortunately, when we're investigating, family likes to protect family. They never want to press charges, even though we don't do the charges, but they protect their family and loved ones, which also, it's not always just aides that take the money. Sometimes it's family. And just so everyone knows, we don't investigate exploitation for scams. So I always say we had one, which was Abraham Lincoln was asking for money from so-and-so for Publishers Clearinghouse. We're going to go in for self-neglect, or what we now call vulnerable adult and needed services, to ensure that person does have capacity. And if they have capacity, we're going to help them if they need a guardian, stopping it. But the law enforcement has to do the criminal aspect for the scam.
Okay. So Stephanie, what can we do, and also older adults or family or supportive individuals within their network, do really to decrease the likelihood of becoming a victim of a scam? And I have to unfortunately tell you, my father is a victim of, or was a victim of, a pretty ridiculous scam. So how can we do that? How can we educate the public better? What are some of the resources available? What can we do to minimize this growing problem in our society?
So I don't think there's just one answer. I think there's a lot of different things we have to keep in mind. And for me, because this gentleman actually is my client, I would say that it's very important to have that support network. Now, support networks come in many different shapes and sizes. Sometimes they're actually family members through blood or marriage, but sometimes that support network is the neighborhood or friends. And I would encourage all of you, if you get that feeling inside, we call it intuition, right? Trust it. Don't disregard it. Don't say, I'm overreacting, I'm overanalyzing. Go with it. If it doesn't pass that smell test, if it doesn't pass that ethical bone, that moral compass, that's when we all have to do something. We have to speak up. We have to reach out. That's the whole idea of community, right? Is we're not just here for ourselves, we're here for our neighbors as well. So we have to be watchful, we have to be mindful. Now you know the 800 number, you know resources. You can reach out to your local police, you can reach out here to the Broward Sheriff's Office. Another resource, if you suspect real estate is involved, is our property appraiser. Marty Keir has a wonderful system. If you have not signed up for it, please do. It's called Owner's Alert. You can do it on a computer. You can go to the library and do it on a computer. If they see something that looks like a questionable transaction involving your home, your real estate, they are going to contact you. Marty will also get BSO involved, which is what they did in the situation with this 80-year-old gentleman. And they will get involved and stop the exploitation. I think being here today is another tool, Denise, because we want you to take this information, take it back to your communities, take it back to your places of employment, share it. That's how we create more informed consumers.
Okay. Deborah, I think I'm going to ask you, because just name some of the more common scams that you've seen, because I think that my father was unbelievably I don't know, won some lottery. I'm not quite sure where that was. Of course, you have to pay the taxes before you get the money and all this great stuff. So can you name a few of those scams that you've come across?
Sure. So the main ones recently that have been going on for years would be IRS. They'll send you an email or make a phone call saying that you owe them money and they're going to send an officer out to arrest you. I still get that all the time. I'm even now getting it on the work phone. They also do it for Social Security. They do it for you've won money from Publishers Clearinghouse, but you have to send us the tax money first, and they ask for more and more money. There's something going on with gift cards where people will call up and they'll say, go out and buy me this amount of gift cards, and someone's going to pick it up. And I guess they're known kind of like the mule. They're doing the transporting of these stolen gift cards. And sometimes they'll actually get older people that might have some kind of memory impairment to pick it up, so they don't even know what they're doing is against the law. Let's see. There's like so many going on, it's so hard to say. But a lot of times they're going to call you on the phone. If they see that someone's had a death in their family, they might call up presenting to be from a funeral home or somewhere, and then they start talking about that deceased person's money to try to get money. And just so you know, just let everyone know the IRS and Social Security is going to email you and most likely, not email you, mail you by letter and tell you to come into an office. They're not going to call you on the phone. And that's the biggest thing, that I think what happens is they're looking for someone lonely. And like another scam that's going around is someone will text like just a number, and they'll be like, oh, you'll say you dialed the wrong number or you text the wrong number. They start to talk to you like they want to be friends because they're hoping someone's going to be lonely and then attach. So, way back when, all those scams with, I guess, boyfriend and girlfriend scams, sweetheart scams, I guess they're called, where they're going to, yeah. I know they had a few of those. People actually meeting other people online also has been happening recently.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to a case study that we have that involves a vet. And that's very near and dear to my heart because my father did serve in Korea and Vietnam. But if you're kind of like a career vet, you don't forget your benefits. But if you're not, let's say you served in World War II, I had people come to me who even forgot that they were entitled to some VA benefits. So we're going to start with Bob and Linda Smith, who live in Broward. They've worked hard their entire lives, they raised a family, and they are now facing the challenges of balancing health needs, caregiving responsibilities, and limited savings as they grow older. Bob is an 85-year-old American Army veteran who served from 1962 to 1968 during the Vietnam War. Although he never saw combat, he served honorably and takes pride in his time in uniform. He and his wife, Linda, who is 63, have been married for 55 years and live in their single-story home in Broward County, valued at around $425,000. The home is paid off, but like many seniors, most of their wealth is tied up in their house. Financially, the Smiths live on a modest income. Bob receives $2,100 per month in Social Security and a $400 monthly pension, while Linda receives $1,100 from Social Security, giving them a combined income of $3,600 per month. They have some savings, but it's limited, about $8,000 in a joint checking account for regular bills and emergencies, $67,000 in savings, and $175,000 in Bob's individual retirement account. Together, their liquid assets total around $250,000. Bob's health has been declining over the past year. He has moderate dementia and limited mobility, needing daily help with bathing, dressing, and taking his medications. Linda tries to manage as much as she can, but she has arthritis in her knees and chronic back pain, which makes lifting and caregiving increasingly difficult. Their daughter Karen lives nearby and helps in the morning before she heads to work. She assists her dad with getting out of bed and dressed and prepares breakfast. She also will stay with him whenever her mother needs respite or runs errands. Their son David lives in North Carolina, but plays an important role from a distance. He handles all of his parents' finances, pays their bills online, and coordinates with the home health agency and other care providers. To give Linda a break and ensure Bob has consistent care, the family recently hired a home health aide 16 hours a week through a local agency at $28 per hour, costing about $1,940 a month. Between those care costs, their household bills, and rising medical expenses, the Smiths had started dipping into their savings each month to make ends meet. They are extremely concerned about running out of money and how they will afford additional care if Bob starts to decline. Linda has heard about the VA aid and attendance benefit for wartime veterans and wonders if Bob might qualify, especially since he needs help with his daily activities. A neighbor also mentioned that Florida's Medicaid home and community-based waiver can help cover in-home care, but Linda assumed that they have too much money to qualify. The couple's goals are simple. They want to keep Bob at home as long as possible, support Linda's caregiving role, and preserve their remaining savings so they don't run out of resources in the years ahead. So we're going to look at, and Heidi, we're going to, of course, direct this to you because this is your area of expertise, really based on Bob's service, his health needs, and financial situation. Would he qualify for VA and attendance? And if so, would you be able to quickly calculate or suggest what that benefit amount may be?
Yes. So basically, there is a little known. First of all, can I ask, do I have any wartime veterans or surviving spouses or people who work with them in the room? That's great. So there is a little known benefit called aid in attendance that helps wartime veterans and or their surviving spouses pay for care, whether they're at home or in an assisted living facility. There are specific requirements in order to qualify. They also, just like Medicaid, have financial requirements. You have an income and an asset. Most people come to me telling me that they believe that they have too much in income. So when you're looking at income for VA purposes, it's not just the direct income of $3,600. It's your income that is outweighed by unreimbursed medical expenses. So in this particular situation, the first thing that would happen is we would evaluate the income. So if they have $3,600 in income, well, they're already paying out $1,940 for an aid. Well, that's not going to get them the full benefit because they have to have unreimbursed medical expenses that totally outweigh that income. So what we can do is, because Karen, the daughter, is actually physically helping her father, we can actually put into place a caregiver agreement with her and pay her as part of his unreimbursed medical expenses. So now we get the income taken care of. On the other hand, you also have an asset limit. Now, VA, unlike Medicaid, counts everything. They count the IRAs. They count the savings. They do not count the house. It's a house minus, in addition to 2 acres around it. So the house would be an excluded asset, just like for Medicaid, the house is an excluded asset. So with $275,000 in assets, they will not qualify for VA either, because VA allows you to have only $159,000 in assets. So one of the things that we can do for them is put into place what's called a personal service contract. A personal service contract is a contract that we can now pay the son David for what he is doing and reduce those assets down to below the benefit amount. And now Bob and Linda will be able to qualify for the aid and attendance benefits, which, as a married couple with a veteran needing care, will give them an additional almost $2,900 in income tax-free. So it's a really important benefit, and it also will stay. If something happens to Linda, then even though the benefit is reduced just for Bob, he will still be able to get a benefit. Or if something happens to Bob, even Linda, as the surviving spouse, will also be able to get a benefit.
Okay. So how would you also help them qualify for the Medicaid home and community-based waiver program?
So also, one of the things that is available, which is great if you are at home or an assisted living facility, is that not only can Bob and Linda qualify for the aid and attendance benefit, but they can qualify for the home community-based waiver program. So Medicaid is an umbrella that has many different services, but there are two specific programs that help individuals who are 65 years and older. And one is the home and community-based waiver program, and the other one is called ICP, or Institutionalized Care Program. That ICP program is for individuals who are in nursing homes. So the home and community-based waiver program is for individuals that are at home or in assisted livings. Again, as Stephanie said, there are financial requirements. So in order to qualify Bob and Linda, we would have to put into place what we call government-approved planning strategies to get dollars out of their name over to their children so that they can then qualify for those programs. So there are ways to get people qualified for both aid and attendance and Medicaid. And again, using an elder law attorney is the best way to find out what those things are.
So can you actually talk a little bit about how you would transfer funds or assets to the adult children without disqualifying them?
Sure, Stephanie, you want to help me on this one? So when you're talking about aid and attendance, there's only one way to get assets out of their name, and that is using a personal service contract. That is the only way. Again, it is a contract in the state of Florida. Family members do not have an obligation to take care of each other. So there's no obligation. And because of that, we're able to put a real contract in place to pay family that are providing those services to you. So when we do that, we're able to use that to get the assets out of somebody's name for aid and attendance benefits. Because for aid and attendance, just like for Medicaid, you can't just give away your money and then turn around and expect the program to help pay for your care or provide you services after that. How many of you in here have heard about the 5-year look back for Medicaid? Right, everybody. I hear this all the time, Stephanie, I'm sure you do too, that people come to my office and say, oh, I can't do anything because there's a 5-year look back. Well, aid and attendance has a 36-month look back. So you can't give away your assets and then turn around and apply for these programs without suffering a penalty. So there are other government planning strategies for Medicaid that are available. We use spousal refusal. That's transferring all assets to a healthy spouse. And that healthy spouse says, I'm not making my assets available. So the sick spouse can qualify for Medicaid. There is annuities. There is promissory notes. We do Medicaid compliant promissory notes.
We might want to tell the client to pay their mortgage down or pay it off.
Right, spend downs are available. We try to make sure, in my practice, we want to try to make sure that we use government planning strategies that allow family members to have another bucket of money to pay for care, because let's face it, any way we cut it, the government benefits aren't going to cover everything. So if you can get those government benefits in to help, and then your family has another bucket of money, then we know that more money pays for better care.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the possibility of using a qualified income trust, or what we often commonly call, at least attorneys do, Miller Trust.
So what happens is when you're trying to qualify for Medicaid, as was set up here, there is an income limit for the individual who wants to qualify for Medicaid, and it's $2,901 in gross monthly income. Not what you get in your bank, but gross. If you have more than that, or if the individual gets more than that, then you can still qualify for Medicaid using what we call a qualified income trust or a Miller Trust. It's just another planning strategy to get somebody who doesn't meet the income limit for Medicaid to still be able to qualify. When Bob and Linda, right now, Bob, basically his income would be under the $2,901. However, once he gets the aid and attendance benefit, well, that's added to his income, and now he's over that $2,901. So we certainly don't want to limit him from being able to get those benefits. So we use what's called a qualified income trust for that.
Okay, so let's talk about Linda. I'll call her the healthy spouse. She does have arthritis, but we'll call her that. So how can we actually, how much of that income or the assets can she actually retain? She's younger, And she's
Yeah,
going
you said
to
she
need
was
care.
63, which would mean that she married him when she was 13. But she's
Well, that's
actually
what's in the-
83. We're not
That's
looking for
another
child
topic.
brides here.
That's
That's a whole
another
nother
topic.
conversation.
I was wondering about that age gap, but
Yeah, she's 83. Maybe many of you were going, what? So basically, she can keep a significant amount of that, especially if she's at home. If she's at home, that income is going into their bank account. So even if it's a qualified income trust, now what's in a qualified income trust does have to be used for unreimbursed medical expenses. So that is one of the limitations of using the QIT. So we want to try to put in there as little as possible, but to meet the requirements. The rest of the income goes directly to her and him. So they're able to still use that money for whatever they need to help them get more care or remain in their home, or if he actually needs to move into an assisted living facility, they will still have to pay the room and board portion.
Okay. So essentially, can actually Bob receive both the VA aid and attendance and the Medicaid waiver benefits at the same time? And how should those benefits be coordinated?
Absolutely. They can receive both, which is the best of both worlds, because if you're receiving a dollar amount, the home and community-based waiver program, if Bob and Linda remain at home, will provide services in their home. So, and I think, Adriana, you could talk better about that, the services that they will provide in the home. So they'll get some home health care, but then they'll get the dollars to also be able to pay for that care. So when you're talking about getting those benefits, the best thing to do is to try to do them simultaneously, because at the end of the day, both benefits, before you actually get them, it's going to take some time, right? Nothing happens the next day. When you're talking about the home and community-based waiver program, as they were talking about the wait list, there's a wait list. And then once you get off the wait list, then you got to go through the application process.
What's the average length? I'm going to ask Adriana, how long are they waiting again, usually?
It's really depending of how your priority score is. Right.
So there's a priority score. It's not a first come, first serve.
And after you're released from the waiting list, the state guidelines are very tight. Their time frames are very short. So it's very important, like Heidi and Stephanie mentioned, when you apply for Medicaid, first of all, it's very important that you disclose your assets to us, because that way we'll advise you better and tell you, talk to an elder law attorney. It's very important to do it now, because I'm sure all those legal processes take a long time to do. So when you are on the process, you don't have that much time. You just have 30, 60, 90 days to do it. And it's important for you to plan in advance, because once you pass the due dates for the program, your eligibility process is terminated if you don't have your paperwork ready and in order.
Right. And one of the other things about the home and community-based waiver program is it doesn't pay retroactive. So if it takes, 2-3 months for them to approve, you don't get the benefit till the next month. Unlike the aid and attendance benefit, if it takes 3-4 months to get approved, you do get those retro benefits. So it's important to start those programs at the same time.
And if Bob passes away, can Linda qualify for VA aid and attendance as the surviving spouse? And what planning can they do now to prepare for that transition?
Absolutely. She can if she's in need of care. So that's the big key. I had somebody call me actually yesterday, similar situation. The husband had died, but she had no needs. She didn't have any care needs. So there's not a lot out there for the VA to help a surviving spouse that has no needs. But since Linda's already suffering, she probably would have care needs at that point, and then she can qualify at that time for the aid and attendance benefits for her. And it all really comes down to, if you want to protect your assets the best, and Stephanie, you can agree with me on this, the best thing to do is pre-planning. Get to an elder law attorney. Find out how can you do pre-planning and protect your assets now so that you could pay for care in the future.
Okay. You broached a little bit on what I wanted to ask each of you to kind of provide, because I find all of this to be planning or actually reacting in a crisis. So what are some of the tips that each of you could share so that you're not actually in that crisis And it's horrific for everybody. The stress levels are so high, the emotions are running high, particularly between families. How can we best try to avoid the situation? What are some of the tips that each of you could provide on this? You want to start, Stephanie?
Wow, we don't have enough time, Denise, for all the tips.
Your top 5.
You know, I think when we are in that position as a caregiver, whether it's for a spouse, a parent, even for an adult child we might be caring for, we go through a lot of different emotions, much like when there's a death. There are different steps of grieving. And we can sometimes, just because we're human, get stuck. Whether it's I'm overwhelmed or 24 hours in a day just doesn't seem to be enough. I would suggest as the first tip, have a support network. Or sometimes, you know, if we feel we can't unload to a friend or a trusted individual, go seek professional counseling, because I think they can help us develop coping skills that perhaps we didn't need earlier in our life. And that can keep us moving forward, stay a little bit more organized, and take some of the steps that we've talked about today.
Well, I will say to prepare yourself, know the programs, find out about the eligibility criteria, find out about how many or which program is best fit for you or your family member. Plan your finances ahead. Don't wait to the last minute. And always call the Area Agency on Aging. We have a great team of information and referral specialists that will either provide information or referrals for you to the programs available in the county.
Okay, so from the APS perspective, I would say if you have any type of, you don't have to have proof, but you suspect abuse, neglect, exploitation, or anyone that might be a vulnerable adult in need of services, just call the hotline. As long as you're doing it in good faith and you're not doing it to get someone in trouble and the abuse or neglect or in need of services is going on, when we go out, we're going to assess the situation and make referrals for the appropriate service. So don't think that you need to have solid proof that someone's getting exploited or because by the law, we do have access to records, medical and financial records. So we could get all the evidence needed if it is going to go criminal. But sometimes when exploitation is occurring, we're going to refer to AAA or Area Agency on Aging and help them get their electric turned back on, help them get their water turned back on, get them food in the house by going through Meals on Wheels while we apply for food stamps for them. We're not going to keep them, I still call you guys ADRC. That's why I was like, yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. So we make the referrals to that agency because they're through Department of Elder Affairs, and then they help along those lines. But if it is emergencies, say we get a call because someone was exploited and Broward Sheriff's Civil Department comes out to evict them, we do help with emergency placement. So there are things we could do. But all you need to have is suspect and good faith. So just call in so that we get involved within 24 hours. However, if the person does have capacity and refuses to go, there's nothing we could do. They have the right to be homeless.
Yeah, that is true. So my tip would be to plan as early as you can. I can tell you that pre-planning, number one, costs a lot less money, a lot less headache, a lot less emotion. But if you're going to pre-plan, really and truly, what's really important is to talk to your family. There's a lot of times we get people in our practice that the children don't know what the parents want, or vice versa. They come from a home where everything is secretive. People don't know. I can tell you my phone rings the most after a holiday because they go and visit their family. The children go visit their family, and their mother or father has been saying to them for 6 months, "Oh yeah, Dad's doing great," and they come home and they see that Dad's not doing so great. So pre-planning is really important. Getting your estate plan. I always say I do pre-planning for the 65 and older population because the estate planning is very different at that point, right? It's no longer, I'm trying to make sure I have enough assets if I die and my children still get to go to college. At that point, it's, I'm trying to make sure I have enough assets to be able to cover my long-term care cost. So that's a really important thing. But again, my biggest tip is talk to your family. I can tell you it happened in my own family. It's really important that the family members know what you want to have happen.
Okay. I am going to share a little story, a little bit off, but maybe not. So I have a number of clients that we call elder orphans. So they don't have any family. Maybe they were an only child, their parents have passed, and they have no living relatives. And this story was actually recently on the news, and I thought it was absolutely heartwarming, was that there was this older gentleman, I think he was in his 80s, and what he basically did to socialize was go to the same restaurant every day for years. And one day he didn't show up. And then day 2 he didn't show up. And then day 3, the manager there actually found out his name and where he lives, because they always called him by name and they'd have a little conversation, and he was always there like almost first thing in the morning, had his coffee, come back later for lunch. And as it turns out, they saved his life. He had fallen and he was unconscious for a few days. And so if you do know anybody like that, creating some kind of a pattern of socialization may actually save them. So in terms that's a bit of a planning as well, because at any given time, any of us could end up being alone. And if we aren't having any kind of connection, we may unfortunately end up into some circumstances and not be saved. So I wanted to add that. And I wanted to add, I have a quick, and this is a surprise, so kind of unfair for the panel. Not unfair for Debbie, though, because we have a little bit of extra time. We have another scenario, and it's actually my fault that there's no slide for it. I apologize in advance. But we do have another story, because I don't want the misconception to be that it's only hired aides that basically exploit their family members financially. In fact, the percentage is much higher amongst family members, but you hear in the news about the aides. You don't hear about the family members because people don't want to report them, but it is a much higher percentage. So Debbie, I'm really going to direct this to you, but everybody else, especially you, Adriana, can chime in, which really has to do with, I believe it's a former case of yours. We have Mrs. Smith, 81 years old, a vulnerable adult due to her physical limitations related to her rheumatoid arthritis. She needs a walker and needs assistance with dressing, bathing, household chores, and bill payment. She lives with her son, William, 59, who has moved into the home so that Mrs. Smith doesn't have to go into a nursing home. The home is currently in disarray. There is minimal food, and Mrs. Smith has received a final notice on her electric bill. Mrs. Smith has a daughter, Kim, who lives about an hour away. However, she doesn't speak to Mrs. Smith due to an argument about William. It is unknown if William is Mrs. Smith's actual caregiver. The Adult Protective Services investigator has 24 hours to see Mrs. Smith face to face. Upon arrival to the home, William answers the door and doesn't allow Adult Protective Services to see Mrs. Smith. The police are already en route to assist with the investigation. Upon entrance to the home, the adult protective investigator observes Mrs. Smith sitting on a sofa with a large bump to her forehead and 2 black eyes. There is takeout food bags and containers all over the floor, a large hole with mold close to the living room and patio exit, large boxes stacked against the wall in the living room. There's only beer in the refrigerator, and there is no operational electric. It's about 90 degrees in the home, which is not unusual, actually, in my household. So when speaking to Mrs. Smith, the following information was obtained. William moved in to assist Mrs. Smith so that she can remain in the home. William is not working, so he's not assisting with the bills. Mrs. Smith gets $1,100 a month in Social Security and no pension. Her home is paid off, but she pays the bills for electric, water, phone, home insurance, and food. She has noticed that her oxycodone that she takes for the arthritis is disappearing. When William took over paying the bills, all the money she had saved up dwindles down, and William told her, everything's more expensive. William put cable into the home, which was turned off 2 weeks ago. William has been yelling and screaming at Mrs. Smith and telling her, I'll send you to a nursing home if he doesn't get what he wants. Mrs. Smith states that she has fallen and hit her head on the table, and that's what caused the black eyes. Upon speaking to William, he denied any wrongdoing. He stated he gets his own Social Security for around $900. Assistance was offered in getting the electric turned back on, setting up automatic bill pay, and in-home services. She accepted help in having the electric turned back on, but Mrs. Smith refused any other assistance. Later that year, another similar allegations were called in. She was transferred to the hospital, and her son was arrested for abuse. She broke her collarbone and was sent home from the hospital the following day. She bailed her son out of jail. When the adult protective investigator arrived at the home, the house was even more in disarray than 3 months earlier. The electric was again turned off. Mrs. Smith stated that her son was yelling at her and pushed her down. She stated this was the second time he was physical with her, and stated that he fibbed the first time, and that when she told the other investigator that she fell, she had actually fallen. So she's now agreed to assistance with the other help with regard to automatic bill pay, some other things that they can assist with, roof repair, application to Medicaid long-term care, and a referral to a legal aid, also to have her son evicted from the home. So I really want you to go into, Deborah, a little bit more in depth about this particular scenario, particularly with the process of the investigation, as well as the referral to the services.
Okay, so that was like our most common case scenario that comes in through the hotline. So usually it'll be an older mother with a son that either is diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and they don't take their medications. So the son only making SSI, which is 63, can't afford to live on his own, especially in Broward County. But the mom's home is paid for and her Social Security covers it. So he moves in, with the idea that I'll take care of you and then I could live with you and you'll take care of all the bills. And then a lot of times we see that these sons are self-treating with alcohol and narcotics. And then here the mom will have a bottle of the oxycodone that the doctor gave for some pain. And, little by little, it'll disappear, but sometimes the whole bottle will be gone. And in some circumstances, they're not only taking it on their own, they're actually selling it on the streets to have money for the drugs they really want. So what happens is, after the money starts running out and the electric goes off, there's no food in the house, we start getting the self-neglect reports to start. And parents protect their kids, and they don't want to ever press charges. They don't ever want to kick them out of the home because they know I need that help and I can't afford that $28 an hour aid in the home. So what ends up happening is they stay there, and then the more and more situation as it gets worse, sometimes the son, I will say it doesn't happen much with the daughters. For some reason, the codependency usually happens with the older mom and the son. He starts yelling and screaming, then they start pushing and hitting. And we've had multiple cases where the moms and the grandmas will go, the police will come in to assist because the person can't get up, and they make an arrest for physical abuse, and that next day they're there getting them out of jail and bringing them back to the home. It happens a lot. I've gone to court for multiple cases where there were arrests. Like they choke their moms, they limit it, usually because the mental illness, the house is always in disarray. Sometimes you could see tables are overturned because they get so mad. So that's like the most common thing we could do. And, most people don't really, unless they could afford a really nice assisted living, they don't want to go to an assisted living, and they definitely never want to go to nursing homes. So that's why they have the codependence, that they rely on each other. We make different referrals. We're not allowed to make referrals for the alleged perpetrator who's doing the abuse. However, sometimes we do give our vulnerable adults information about going for them to go to maybe Alcoholics Anonymous or to go get some kind of health care. So all we could do is make referrals to the clients themselves. But sometimes it's the other person that actually needs that help. But like we offer different services, and like I said earlier, our services go through an ART system, which is Department of Elder Affairs, and goes directly to Area Agency on Aging, in which they take it. But I don't know if you want to talk about the
Yeah,
different
I do.
services.
Adriana, I want you to talk about
Sure.
the services you could provide.
Well, we work very close with Adult Protective Services and receive their referrals in two different ways. The first one is the seniors that are removed from the house because they're in extremely danger and they're placed in an assisted living facility. We receive the referrals directly from APS, and we pass by the intake process that I mentioned earlier and the screening process that I mentioned earlier. So they go straight to the eligibility process. They still need to meet the criteria for the program, so we still help them get the medical criteria approved and the financial criteria approved. But most of this work is done, and the intake is done by Adult Protective Services investigators. So when they get to us, we pretty much know they meet the criteria for the program, they financially eligible, and then we help them go through the rest of the eligibility process. So they skip a big part, they don't go on the waiting list. And the other part of the referrals are individuals that don't want to go to the assisted living facility. And they are also skipping the intake process. Skipping now because APS already completed that intake process. They go through the assessment process. They will get a priority score that usually is a high priority score. And as soon as funds are released from the state, we will start the eligibility process for them and set up services through the managed care organizations that Medicaid contracts with in Broward County.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to open it up for question and answer. So if there's anything that our panelists have not addressed or something that you would like to them elaborate on a little bit further, please feel free to ask a question. Do we have anyone running around with mics, or do we need to? I'll start with you. Who has oh, you have a mic? And she, okay, great.
Oh, I think I
Test.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lorna from Comfort Care Nursing Professionals and Ocean One Home Health. I have noticed several times, I want a very important question to ask. Now, every day I visit is like hospitals, rehabs, and I've seen so many elderly getting discharged, and there's no one to care for them at home. And every so often we try to assist them by telling them about the Medicaid long-term care. Now, when they goes on the waiting list and get discharged and have to be going home by themselves, are there any other programs out there that they could get a little assistance, or, by getting someone to come in and give them a shower, make sure that they have something to eat? I've seen that happen all the time, and the waiting list is so long. Are there any other way that we can speed up the waiting list, especially when they live alone and very fragile? I've seen that every day. So if someone can address this to be.
Okay, so first of all, they don't need to wait to apply for Medicaid long-term care until they discharge from the hospital, the rehab facility. They can start the process previous to that. The assessment will complete it while they're in the hospital or nursing home. And most likely the score is going to be high, so the process, the release from the waiting list will be pretty soon. If they are placed in a nursing home, usually Medicare only covers, it's very limited what Medicare covers. So the nursing homes often apply for the institutional care program, ICP, that Heidi mentioned earlier. And when a person is 60 days on that institutional care program, there's a nursing home transition program that will move with them to the community. The nursing home transition will transition from rehab or a nursing home into an ALF, assisted living facility, or the community without skipping the whole process. So they don't have to go through the intake, the assessment process. They just need to make sure they're 60 days on ICP, and they will transition to the community with services.
The attorneys.
If you wouldn't mind, so everyone can hear.
Okay, when you're applying for Medicare and you are told that you don't think that you'll qualify, do you have to go through the payment to the attorney just to be told, no, you don't? How does that, because it's very expensive to hire an attorney to tell you you don't qualify.
Well, any attorney that's taking your case on and not telling you, and then turning around and telling you that you don't qualify is not the attorney that you should be going to. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
I agree.
You should, before you hire an attorney, you should have a consultation with that attorney, and that attorney should know whether or not they can assist you. And that's one of the questions that you should ask at your consultation. Can I qualify for the program? Yes, it is costly, obviously, to hire an attorney, but the way that we look at it is that the benefits are going to come back to you tenfold once you get the programs that you're able to qualify for. But if you're going to an attorney and you're paying them and then they turn around and tell you that, oh, hey, no, sorry, we can't get you the benefits, that attorney is not the proper attorney that you should be seeing. Medicaid hasn't changed. I don't know, Stephanie, how many years have you been doing this?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Medicaid has not changed. We have had the same planning strategies. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years. We've had the same planning strategy. The only thing that has changed in Medicaid during my time is the income, because it increases every year. But the asset limit has stayed the same. Now, there's also a community resource limit that has gone up. Like, those numbers have gone up, but your planning strategies, your programs, all of that have pretty much stayed the same for years.
What I would add, and I think this might be what you're getting at, is how do you know the type of attorney to go to? That's what I think the issue is. So what I would suggest is, as Heidi has already said, there's specialization. Law is like medicine. You know, if you feel you're having chest pains, you wouldn't go to a podiatrist, right? You'd go to a cardiologist. It's the same thing with law. So there is a difference between what Heidi and I do as elder law specialists and an attorney who maybe does only estate planning. They're not going to be familiar with the Medicaid laws, the veteran benefit laws. So when you call, even before having the consultation, you want to ask questions like, what is the area of specialty? How often during the week does the attorney counsel clients about Medicaid? That, I think, will help you differentiate the attorney that is best suited, most knowledgeable to assist and guide you.
And I just want to say one other thing. It's really important to make sure that you are seeing the proper attorney, especially when you're doing your documents. That durable power of attorney is one of the most important documents that anybody over the age of 18 should have. I cannot tell you how many times, and I'm sure you see this too, people come to me with a durable power of attorney that is not Florida appropriate, has been done over the computer that they just pulled up, or has been done by their parents, best friends, neighbors, sons, child who happens to be a criminal defense attorney, right? So I can tell you this, that if you were arrested, you would not want to use me as your attorney, because I'm not getting you out of jail. But I might actually end up in jail with you. But on the other hand, if you're looking for somebody to do the proper paperwork, you need to be looking at the proper attorney.
Hi, I just wanted to say something. We have an outstanding panel up there with really great attorneys. but some people just can't afford to go to an attorney. So we also have Coast to Coast Legal Aid. Would you stand up? They are our providers. They are one of the 40 providers that I mentioned that we contract with, and they are lovely and always responsive when we reach out to them. So you could always ask them if they are able to help you as well. Again, they don't full-time do what Stephanie and Heidi does, so they don't have that level of expertise in that area, but they can do a lot and they have a lot of knowledge. So did you want to just say anything real quick? Coast to Coast Legal Aid, they're on our website. You can call the helpline to contact them. So again, you do have another resource here as well who is always willing to help.
Yes, thank you. We're grateful to have a contract with the Area Agency on Aging to provide free legal services for seniors. We also help with things like housing issues, problems with public benefits, medical debt. So we're also here to help. Thank you so much.
I also,
Hi, I'm being told, and I just need clarification on something. Applied in the process of waiting for the application to go through and be processed with the caseworker for the Medicaid waiver. Just applied as well for the VA. But I'm getting different information. I just need clarification on something. I was told by a person in the area agency, as well as the Broward Veteran Services, that regarding the aid in attendance, it's actually you have to apply first and be approved for the survivor's pension in order to get the aid in attendance as well. And I'm also told that the aid in attendance does not count towards income, the survivor's pension does. And so now I'm getting misinformation, and I know that you said that it's something, and I don't see anywhere on there the survivor's pension portion being mentioned from the VA. So which one is it? Because they told me that if the Medicaid waiver is still processed and the VA goes first because my mother's 97, then they'll go ahead and I need to get the QIT in order to prevent being denied.
So there are several different benefits that a surviving spouse can get under aid and attendance. If the veteran died as a result, first of all, if the veteran had service-connected disability up to 100%, then there is a pension that the survivor can get as long as the death was as a result of the injury from service. So that's one. The other benefit that I'm talking about is aid in attendance. There is portion of that is considered pension, and a portion of it that's considered aid in attendance. The pension portion technically is what's considered income for Medicaid purposes, and the aid in attendance portion is not. The problem is being able to get the letter from the VA to break that down for Medicaid purposes is a process in and of itself. So what we do is we just go ahead and make sure that it all goes into the QIT, and then we don't have to worry about whether or not it's what Medicaid Council considers it income or not. But you don't have to do one before the other. Absolutely not. We get a lot of clients on Medicaid home and community-based waiver because the VA is taking a lot longer, especially for surviving spouses, to get their applications done. But we will go ahead and put into place that QIT already so that it's set up. So as soon as that money comes in, it can go to the QIT.
I don't need a microphone. Heidi, you mentioned the spouse saying that they're not going to use their assets for the spouse. So, like, nothing, you can't spend. And the second question is, when you have that contract with the family member, if it's a spouse, do you have to pay income tax on that?
Those are my favorite questions. So, first of all, the spouse, they couldn't hear the question, Marcia. So that's okay. The question is, number one, if you use the spousal refusal, which is one of the planning strategies that we use for Medicaid purposes, it transfers all the assets to the healthy spouse, and that healthy spouse says to Medicaid, I am not making my assets available to my sick spouse and then the sick spouse is able to get qualified for benefits for Medicaid. So that's a planning strategy that we use. So technically, yes, that's what you're saying, is that I have all the assets, so now. No, of course you can. Of course, Marsha. You could take him to dinner if you still like him. If you don't like him, you could say, I'm not doing it. Or her, sorry. I don't mean to be sexist. But yes, of course you still can, but technically that's what you're saying to Medicaid. I have the assets. I'm not, it's called spousal refusal. You actually sign the Medicaid, the individual seeking Medicaid signs away what they call their rights of, what's it called? Right of support, where technically Medicaid could come in and sue the healthy spouse at death to try to get the benefits back, but it never happens. There's a lot of legal reasons why it doesn't. So yes, you absolutely can do that. We do that planning strategy for people who have, way more, or they want to keep the benefits within the husband and wife. As for the personal service contract, I am not a tax attorney. I don't profess to be one. I don't even like to read the taxes. I don't even like to do my own taxes. So I tell my clients, and I don't know, Stephanie, how you do it, is basically I tell my clients that technically it's a fee for service contract. Right? So you're getting paid for a service. And so if you want to worry about the taxes, go talk to your CPA, go talk to your tax attorney, go talk to your tax professional to figure out how to do the taxes. Well, so technically you're doing it so that you can get a bulk of money out of the individual's name to be able to qualify for the benefits. And usually doing something, whether it's that personal service contract or doing some kind of other planning, outweighs that benefit. The cons outweigh the benefit that you're going to get from the government program that you're applying for. So it's just a planning strategy. So those are things that we talk about when we're doing consultations and when we're doing representation about what's the best planning strategy for the families.
Question over here.
Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for putting on this excellent conference. My question is, as we heard from the initial person that introduced Ms. Charlotte, concerning the amount of caregivers in Broward County. Now, I don't see that amount of people in this room, all right? How do you extend that information to others throughout the community, throughout Broward County?
Here, Charlotte.
That's actually one of our top priorities. We have a caregiver navigator team, raise your hand, that actually goes out and we talk to different cities, we talk to homeowners associations, we go to clubs, anywhere that we can get the word out. They're available, they're out all the time. We also are videotaping this conference so that it will be online so people can see it. We'll include it in our newsletter, we'll send it out to people. We have it on the website, social media. We are trying to get out as much as possible. Our theme is know us before you need us, because it's really important. The panel here talked about preparation. If you are prepared, life is so much easier. I personally get so many calls from caregivers, just personally, even that bypass our helpline, and they're in crises because suddenly they were just doing what they do, taking care of their loved one, and they suddenly realize that it's not manageable for them and they don't know what to do. So our goal is to get the word out with the help of all of you. You can let us know if you know of places we should be speaking, information that needs to go out. Again, we've expanded the outreach team. They're very active. So please let us know. So we're really working on that.
Over here.
I have a very quick question. Is $28 an hour a realistic price to hire an aide?
Yeah, I'm seeing anywhere from, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if there's probably agencies out here, but I'm saying $28 to $32 an hour. When we did Care for My Dad in Jacksonville, we actually were paying $36 an hour. So yeah, I think that's pretty average right now. Yeah, that's what we had 36. We were paying 36 an hour. I mean, my dad had long-term health care, but insurance at the time, but 50? That's, if you're talking 50, you're usually talking about a nurse, or you're in New York.
My husband is a veteran, and he receives 70% disability. So what you're talking about is separate, the 2,900 is separate from his disability income?
No, actually, it's not. You can get one or the other. You're either service connected or aid in attendance. So you want to go with the benefit that's going to give you the most money. So if the 70% is giving you more money, that's the one that you want to go with. If he's 70% service connected, you may be able to go and do a process. I don't actually do it, but there are other attorneys out there to get his disability rating increased. So if he increases to 100%, you're going to get more money.
Right. And I understand that for me to get surviving spouse, and it would have to be for a reason that he is disabled, would have to be on his death certificate.
Yes.
But he would have to be, we were told by the veteran service officer that he would have to be receiving that for 10 years before I would be eligible for a surviving spouse.
He actually has to be receiving 100%.
100, that's right.
Yeah, so he's got to get
100%.
100%. And it is, again, it's not an area that I do, but I do believe you're correct that I think you have to be married for 10 years. I don't think he has to be receiving it for 10 years, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I think you have to be married 10 years prior to his death. In order to get the surviving spouse after, but you do have to get him to 100%.
Right. Okay. Thank
We
you.
have a question back here in this corner. I think we haven't been back here. Can you see? She's raising her hand there.
Hello, I care for my mother, and I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you. It's not an easy journey. Those of you that are here, thank God for the Holy Spirit, the intuition, because you have to pay attention to when you need these things. I knew about the durable power of attorney. That's what helped me a great deal. But I have found that a lot of people, what will happen is people will know things, but they won't say, oh, by the way, XYZ. So if I don't know what to ask for, what to do for XYZ, I don't know how to go any further. I've been blessed because of the fact that I've listened to that intuition, and from Northeast Focal Point to this right here, I stumbled across this yesterday. And I walked in the door, and some of the questions that I have or situations that are coming up, they've all been answered today. So yes, it's very important that we get this word out. You know, my daughter is even working on an app herself, you know, because as a caregiver, when my mother came down with this and being a stubborn Taurus, she doesn't need any help and she's not going to do it. And I found that what happens is if they say they don't need help, then there's nothing you can do. But the neighborhood has disappeared. So we've got to really, and people, if nothing else, see something, say something. That's where there's this, where there's anything dealing with your neighborhood. So I just want to tell you guys, thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And y'all have a blessed day.
I think we have time for one more question. Oh, Charlotte says 2.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, coast to coast, it's good to see you. I think I was the first one to recognize the value of coast to coast here in Broward County because they were out of Miami-Dade. My question is, and I know it's not only seniors, but tell me, do you have, if someone, let me say, you know, not computer literate, I don't hear any concerns or question asked or any suggestion made as to how any of these agencies that we have. I heard my girlfriend behind me talking. She knew where I was going. Okay? We just need to know that folks are not using computers like you think. We remember teaching the seniors how to navigate the world of computer. It is not working when they have other things going on. So let me hear from you how we address that. Thank you.
At least for our agency, we have Kevin here, who's one of our navigators, Vivian and others. Donna's back there. We will go to someone's house, or if they can come to the office, we'll work with them. We will help them fill out the paperwork, because we know government does not make it easy. It makes it really hard. I mean, I can tell you it's hard for me, and I used to work at the hospital. I'm the CEO here. When my mom started getting to an age where she needed help, I needed help with that paperwork. So we will help you. We will help write it out for you, because we know that people need help. So
Thank you, Charlotte. This
Thank you,
gentleman here
Charlotte.
has a question.
Very good job. Thank you.
This gentleman behind you has a question.
Thank you. First of all, I'm overwhelmed in seeing so many people here. I take care of my wife who has dementia, and it's a long. Oh. Thank you. Well, as you know, it's not easy. My question is, I keep hearing that President Trump has reduced the funds that is allocated to Medicaid. How, if it does, affect one who wishes to apply for Medicaid, like for my wife?
We
Does
still
it have an
actually,
effect?
I don't think we can answer that question as of yet, to be honest with you. I was actually in DC yesterday, and part of the lobbying was for the SNAP program. So we actually don't really know how this is going to fall, but my belief is that there are too many individuals in need of this care. So whatever that the government tries to shortfall, unfortunately, the states are going to be pressured to do it. The states are not going to be able to do it. And as a result of that, I think that they will be coming back to the table and renegotiating those numbers. Because if the states, a lot of the states actually, and this goes quite a bit back, didn't even take on the additional funding that they could have received for the Medicaid programs at one point. So it's still very uncertain, but I wouldn't really let that stop me from applying. That was kind of the question I think someone asked earlier, is because there's so much uncertainty as to how this is going to play out. But what we can do is simply, contact your senator, contact your representatives. You can certainly make your voice be heard with regard to that. And I do think that it's political suicide not to actually continue funding these programs to the extent that they should be funded. So I don't think we'll get more funding, but I think we'll land wherever it is that we are now with regard to that. And I have to ask Adriana to make one thing clear before this is over. Adriana, can you talk about really the process? We don't want to have there are 3 attorneys up here. We don't want people to think that you have to go to a lawyer for everything. So Adriana, talk a little bit about the process with the Area on Aging.
Yes. If you're applying for Medicaid long-term care and you need a personal service contract, we definitely would advise you to go to an elder law attorney. Now, if your income is not that high and you're just over for a couple of $100, legal aid coast to coast will assist with the QIT for no fee. So that's a great resource. We're not legal advisors, we're not attorneys, we don't provide legal advice at the office, but we can tell you if you're over only for a couple of $1,000, we can tell you can transfer those dollars to your spouse. It's a legal transfer allowed by Medicaid. You can spend down. So there's few things we can advise you to do where you don't need an attorney to continue with the process. We can tell you when to go to legal aid, and we can tell you where to go to an elder law attorney.
Okay, so please, a round of applause for these incredible experts in this area. So thank you guys. It was wonderful.